Hi, everybody. Welcome to Ask the Amigos for September. Do you remember, Aaron? The 21st day of September.
It's the boy's birthday.
Is it really?
Yeah,
So I guess you do remember it.
I do. Other under penalty of death.
Now, do you remember the first time that you ever saw the Lukester when he came home from the hospital?
I was in the operating room when he came out.
Oh, so you didn't do the classic dad thing where you were in the waiting room and you were smoking the pipe and all that stuff?
No, I was in there.
You
I
were in
was
there. You were
on it.
right up in there.
Oh man, it was like a Cthulhu style adventure in there. I shall do that again, but I was there. I was there.
Okay. So you saw him early on, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right, Aaron. So if you don't remember how this works, every month people ask us questions in Discord, and we answer them. That's how it works.
That's how it works. That's pretty simple. We could do that one.
Yeah. So here we go. We're gonna start things off with Bomb the Bass. He asks, "What's the most cheesy pickup line you've ever used, and did it work?"
What do you got here, dude? I want to hear one of your big ones.
I've got nothing. I've the amount of times that I've ever tried to pick up a girl are low. Yeah, normally I guess my pickup line is like awkwardly standing around, maybe just like unbroken stairs. You know, the things that chicks dig.
Yeah, I've got one that springs to mind. I was an independent wrestling show in Lexington, and there was a really good looking chick at the show. But that right there was unusual.
Yeah, man.
And she had on a Terry Funk T-shirt.
Oh my gosh!
She knows who Terry Funk is.
Did you walk up to her and say, "You want to do it for pride"?
No. I said, "Hey," this was a subtle. I mean, I was going to work my way into a pickup, but I was like, "Hey, you're into Terry Funk, eh?" That was my pickup line. That's how I got my foot in the door.
How'd it go?
Right? It didn't go too good because she was dating one of the wrestlers.
Was she dating Terry Funk? That could have been awkward.
Terry Funk's been married for like 60 years, and he's an old man. But she was dating like, I can't remember which one of the indie geeks it was. But it didn't go well.
Rusty Shanks, probably.
No. So yeah, pickup lines are not my bag. Usually,
how do you lure them in? What's your secret?
Friend of a friend. That's
yeah.
That's the easy road.
That's a good way to go. Absolutely.
So yeah, that's how I like to do it.
I did meet the girlfriend that I had in Korea. I did meet her at a bar, which that's the only time that's ever happened to me. But
yeah, other
than that, my people have always they've really all come through the band. If we're being honest, that's
the bar pickup's tough, especially for me because generally I'm usually drunk at the bar.
Right.
Back in the day, not now, of course. What's a bar? But back in the day, I didn't waste any time. Yeah. I was one of the
right to work
because I don't like beer, so I'd hit the hard stuff instantly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sometimes I would get liquored up before I got to the bar. So there you go, and have somebody drive me over.
All right, next up, Simulant asks, if a beautiful woman approached you and if you were single, and she asked if you either wanted to play some Amiga with her or have a roll in the hay with her, which would you choose?
Roll in the hay.
I would say, what's an Amiga? And that would be the end of that.
Yes. I love the Amiga, but...
it's funny. I'm sure you've seen these German magazines, these German computer magazines, and they've got like a girl in lingerie, and like the dude is like over there playing with the computer while she lays there seductively. I can guarantee you 100% of the time that has never happened. That's just...
Now, if it was a Polish magazine, I'd buy it. The Germans, I don't know.
Again, with the racism.
Yeah. That wasn't racist. I'm saying the Polish are passionate about their Amigas. That's what I'm saying.
Flack asks, tell us about a memorable moment about data loss. It could be from a floppy disk becoming unreadable, a hard drive going bad, or a file getting accidentally deleted. Yeah, okay. So let's start with that.
Okay, I got one right immediately popped into my mind. I'll never forget this. I was this is when I had just started acquiring Wii software, right? The Wii, Nintendo Wii, and I had an external hard drive that had worked up to the nines, good to go, right? So we were going to my brother's house. He wanted to get a dupe of this thing, We hopped out of the car. I had a tree and her nephew in the car, and the nephew was holding the drive for me because I was driving. And the first thing he did was jump out of the car, and the drive did like a moonsault onto the cement. All right.
Mm.
And they thought that was good stuff. They thought they were amused by that. And man, I was so mad. I'll never forget how mad I was. And of course, the drive was trashed,
Yep.
just like I thought it was. And one thing that bothers me about something like that is that no one knows the amount of man hours that goes into that sort of thing.
Right.
And I mean, any of you hardcore super dorks out there, geeks, will understand this stuff doesn't just happen. The amount of time it takes to download this stuff, to hunt it down, to find it, to format it properly. This is old school. To get in a proper format on the drive, to format the drive in the appropriate way. It takes hours and hours and hours. So whenever something like that happens, the accumulated time it took, plus the money, all gone.
Not to mention the fact that the people that destroyed it were so cavalier about its destruction as well.
That was the worst part.
Yeah.
That's the word. I used that word, by the way.
Did you really?
Yes. I was so mad that I still remember it. I mean, I threw a big Aaron fit right there.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
Surprisingly, after a lifetime of working with computers, I've not experienced any data loss from. I've had drives go bad, but I knew that they were going bad, and I could back them up in time. The only time I've ever lost data was when I went. Well, the story I'm going to tell, at least, was I went out to California and visited my friend, and we had a great time. We played golf in the desert. It was amazing. It looked like a course from Neo Turf Masters. I took a ton of pictures. The first time I ever went to In-N-Out, and then my card got corrupted, and I lost all those pictures. And it's funny, even last week, anytime a new device comes up that's like, we can recover your data, something new, and they're like, try it out. I always try it. It never works. So I've come to terms with the fact that this is not coming back. But that's the only time that I've ever lost data. Now, Jason in the chat brings up a great point. I would like to be able to get that lost data from Amigathon. We had all that stream, for whatever reason, didn't appear.
We were talking about that while you were fiddling around with something about those wee hours where you were literally looked like Gene Wilder. It's insane, glazed over look, drool coming out of your mouth. I wouldn't mind seeing that again either.
Yeah.
So that was, but maybe that's good that that's lost. Maybe we don't want to see that.
Right.
Because I don't remember much of what happened. So
yeah, me neither. Let's see. Mitsuyama asks, whatever happened to quicksand? Oh, I'm sorry. Flack asks, what yeah, I forgot the second part of Flack's question. He said, what's the most you would pay to get that data back? Now nothing, because you got it a million times.
Well, there is back in the day, me and Will Cox and some other guys used to trade tape backups, 250 megabytes. This is way back. And man, when one of those suckers went corrupt on you, that sucked, because I mean it's a lot of data back in 84 or something like that. 1994, excuse me. So what are you doing?
I'm standing up. I've been sitting too long.
Are you going to announce someone to the ring?
Ladies. Man,
let's get on to the quicksand question. That's the big dog.
Okay,
right
so let me continue with Mitsuyama's question.
Okay, go ahead.
Whatever happened to quicksand? When I was a kid watching adventure serials and reading comics, I thought that quicksand would be an ever-present danger in my adult life, but you don't hear about it these days, do you? Have either of you ever had an encounter with quicksand?
Go ahead, Bode.
No. In fact, I share Mitsuyama's question, because when I was a kid, you couldn't take 2 steps in an adventure novel without running into quicksand. I feel like I've had experience with quicksand at the beach, because I think all quicksand is just sand with water in it. Like when you go to the beach sometimes and you step in some sand and you sort of sink into it a little bit. Isn't that all quicksand is?
There's a formula in there where the amount of water versus the amount of mass of the sand, there's a gimmick there. There's a deal where they become quicksand. Right?
Oh, okay. It's like a recipe.
It's a
recipe for death.
Quicksand is a big deal. If you think about quicksand, it's awesome, right? It exists because you've seen these things where it sucks up like tanks and whole trucks and stuff. I don't think I've ever been in quicksand, but I think I've seen stuff that looks sort of like quicksand. It's kind of swampy looking.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't go there.
I've
I'm not darn sure not going to go with a vine over it or anything. You
one
know
doesn't
what I
really
mean?
seek out quicksand, and I don't know that we ever really travail in places that might
It's
contain it. Do
it's
we?
more of a
Is
jungle thing, and we don't have jungles up here.
no, no. Next up, Ricky DeRocher asks, if the sun is on fire, how come there's no smoke?
Um, you want to tackle that one? Teach your boat?
I don't know. Seems
I
like there
don't
should
either.
be.
I don't know. Is it a proper fire? Like, how's the
It's not.
oxygen
I mean,
getting
it's
out?
not a proper fire like you or I would make. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
that's
The sun.
so.
What are we
Look,
doing
it's some
here?
sort of cosmic rays boat, sort
Yeah,
of like in Fantastic Four.
yeah,
So
exactly.
I'm gonna go with that.
Lobsterminator asks, do you have any other retro interests not relating to computer or gaming?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Both of us do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Both. You're a big record. Or you were a big record collecting guy. That's pretty retro. And of course, console stuff. I've got a whole slew of course, I like old radio shows, comic books. Sort of, I dabble in an antique now and again. You know what I mean? So I'm into that. I used to collect baseball cards and stuff.
That's not
That
really
were,
a retro hobby, though. He's asking
no,
for
well,
retro
no, that's
interests.
a retro. That's a retro hobby, depending on what year you're collecting from. You know, so that's the way I look at that. I mean, I everything I've ever collected, I didn't want anything contemporary. So that's the way I look at it. I always look for older stuff,
Mm-hmm.
because I always thought that was better and the value was better. So that's sort of. What about you? What do you got?
Um, Now, I mean, nothing because I sold everything. But in the past, I've collected I mean, almost anything you can think of. Like, I went through phases where I was really into old coins. Like, I collect, like, old, like, Carson City silver dollars from, like, the early 1900s.
Ooh, neat.
Old, like, Mercury dimes and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. My
Um,
dad collected that stuff too.
yeah, yeah. Records was probably my biggest thing. I had a big record collection that got even bigger when I lived in England, and was working at Oxfam, and I would just snap up anything cool that came through the doors, and tons of awesome stuff came through the doors. I feel like I could probably get into what Lobsterminator mentioned, some retro hi-fi gear. I love like
Oh
real to
man.
reel tapes and stuff like that. I think that would be a cool thing to get into. Like if I ever move totally out of the gaming space and I need something to fill that void, I would probably go that route.
Could I mean you brought something up. This is off subject. You said if you might get into that if you move out of the gaming space, which is corporate mumbo jumbo for if you get sick of this crap and move along. Can that actually happen? I mean, did you see a day? Because I mean, you are pretty not to rag on you, but you're kind of flighty.
Mm-hmm.
You'll turn on a dime. Can you see a day where you're just like, oh, screw all this, and
Yeah,
then you just stop
absolutely.
playing video games? Or
Like if I ever move again, we will never live in a house as big as this house again. Half of the reason why I like retro games is because I like having them on the shelves. Like I love just sitting here. Like I'll be sitting down here working on something, and I'll just look around the room, and it makes me feel happy because I'm surrounded by these, these games. Um, the amount of time that I spend playing video games, except for the games that we play for the show, is vanishingly small. Like I am not a big game player these days. Most of my hobby time I spend reading or um I don't know. Like I've definitely played more uh stuff now that I have the system that I have set up now, where I've got like the monitor and I pull down a computer off the shelf. But I will go like a couple weeks without doing any of that stuff, and then I'll do one of my streams, and that'll sort of get me back into it. It's hard to say, would I ever stop completely playing video games? Probably not, because emulation is so good. I mean, I'll always have a PC, and I'll, like, say that we move back to Thailand and we're living in some like one room house. Like, I'll still have a computer, and if I want to fire up Pac-Mania on MAME, it's real easy to do. But I will stop when we stop living in this house. I will never collect video games again. I guarantee you.
you got an interesting slant there, Bud. But that yeah, I was just wondering how you'd go on that. I can't see myself ever, unless I've had to sell everything, which that's happened several times in my life where I've had to part with almost everything I own, and you never know what's going to happen. But aside from that, as long as I can keep my head above water, I'll keep everything because I like it. I'm like you. It's funny you talk about the boxes on the shelf. Because this sort of falls in line with the story we were talking about on Amigos about the guys selling the games, the limited run games.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's ultimately what people do. I mean, surely people never. The funny thing, the most amusing thing about these box sets, like a Turrican, is that chances are the people that get this will never open it and never see the stickers or the enamel badge or anything in the first place.
I wonder that about almost everything these days because we live in a collector's market for everything. Like, how many Spectrum necks are never going to get opened? You know, they're going to be past.
There'll be some.
Well, there'll be some, but I wonder how many people buy them solely to keep sealed in the hopes that the value will go up over time. And that's one thing that just never happened, with video game stuff in its first run. Like, nobody was thinking, man, this copy of Clue Land for the NES is going to be, really rare one day.
Yeah, collecting has taken a bizarre. Well, I mean, I guess it's a natural.
It's just caught up with all the other collecting things. Video game collecting is now just like baseball cards and comics and all that nonsense.
Yeah. It's funny because all of which I've abandoned at one time or another. So there you go.
No, you've never abandoned comic books.
Yes, I have. I haven't bought new comics for years.
But it's not like you got rid of the comics you had. You still enjoy the comics you have.
I do.
Moving on. Let's see. Paul, a.k.a. Hermsky, asks, what board games do you enjoy playing best?
Well, we used to play board games all the time, didn't we, Bo?
Yeah, man.
I miss that, really do. And the sad thing is there were great ones that I can't remember. The ones I enjoy the most I love Puerto Rico. I guess that counts. That's already a board game.
Yeah, so Puerto Rico is totally a board game.
Well, yeah, I guess so. I can't. I'm trying to remember. I remember. I like Catan.
Yep.
I like Ticket to Ride.
Mm-hmm.
I like Power
Grid.
Power Grid and its sequel quite a bit. I like some of those games where you team up to win. The Camelot, Shadows of Camelot. I like that. Pandemic that used to be a lot more fun than it is now.
Yeah.
But I like that one. What's it? Carcassonne? Is that the name of it?
Mm-hmm.
I like that one. So I've got a lot of board games, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Because there was a time when we played every single game that was ever released for a long time.
Right. Well, some of our circle still does.
Oh, Robo Rally. Mm-hmm. That's another good one. So yeah, all the Cthulhu games we've been playing over at Chad's. Those are fun. I like those as well. The board ones, Shadow of the Innsmouth, and that sort of stuff. So what about you?
I like all the ones that you mentioned. I mean, all those that you mentioned are sort of in the Hall of Fame for board games: Carcassonne and Catan and Ticket to Ride, and they're all great. They're for good reason, But my favorite is probably Power Grid Factory Manager, the sequel to Power Grid. I like Power Grid, but towards the end of the game, I feel like your ability to be able to do lots of math in your head helps tremendously. And towards the end of Power Grid, my brain just explodes because it's gotten to be so complex. But I really like Factory Manager. A lot of people don't know this, but I actually created my own board game. Do you remember that, Aaron?
What was it called?
It was called Arcade Fever.
I remember Brent doing one.
Yeah, Brent created a game called Hun Commander.
Yeah.
And I made a game.
The arcade game. That was yours.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I remember that. I thought Brent did that. That was yours.
Yeah, that was me.
That was fun. I like that one.
Yeah. One day I'll get it out again. And I got hung up trying to write the rules. Writing rules is a real drag because you're thinking of every possible scenario that can happen.
Yeah.
And I sort of got bogged down in it.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
I will say. We used to go to the con in Charleston. They would have the board game competitions up there, and I remember one year me and Brent played all the games that were up for the competition. That was kind of neat to play all the different types of games, So it's neat. I like the idea of creating a game. I've had one in my head for a while, but I just don't have the jack to create a game.
Yeah, my Race for the Galaxy is my favorite board game. It's a card game, so I mean it doesn't have a physical board, but it's the same sort of it's the Euro style type thing.
Yeah,
I can play Race for the Galaxy all day long.
That's not one I enjoyed that much. I had trouble with that one.
It's not any. You really have to play it a ton, which is part of the problem with it. But you're right. We used to play board games all the time, and now we never do because we do
Yeah.
Amigos, the podcast about everything Amiga.
Well, what changed for me is just get a new job, because I used to drive right past where the board game night was, and now I go in the exact opposite direction of the board night game.
That's true
game
too.
night. So
Yeah.
otherwise, I would still be doing it. Yeah.
Let's see.
I've got Star Trek Catan, by the way, for whoever was that, Frodo. I'm looking at it right here on my shelf.
Simulant asks, do Americans eat a weekly Sunday roast with their families?
No.
Yes.
You do?
Well, I mean, can you definitively say that Americans don't eat a weekly Sunday roast with their families?
Yeah, I think I can. I think that's not a tradition here, I guess is what I'm saying.
I think when I was growing up, like, I know that, like, there were definitely people that I knew, like my friend Logan, that his mom would make, like, the equivalent of, like, a Sunday roast dinner every Sunday.
But I mean, do you know anyone doing that now?
I mean,
I'm not sure I've known anyone that ever did it. You know, not a weekly thing where the family all gets. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it just in my world, no, it's a big no.
I would say that there are. I don't know if it's, you know, a Sunday roast in terms of, like, this is roast beef and we eat roast beef every Sunday. But I think, like, the Sunday dinner, especially if you come from a church-going family, I think that, like, getting everybody, especially if you have, like, extended family that live nearby, that seems like a thing that probably still happens. It's definitely, it's probably not as common as it once was, but I think that it's definitely a thing that happens. Now, is it the same as in England? I don't know, because I just don't know what a Sunday roast is like. But I think that, like, of all the days of the week, if you're going to gather together with your family to eat, like, a sort of better dinner, wouldn't you say Sunday is probably the day?
Yes, but it's not something that I would like to do that. It's funny in America. Now, I can't. Again, I'm speaking just from my perspective. The whole family gathering. It doesn't seem like it. When I was a kid, that seemed to happen more. Maybe it's because I didn't have a choice in the matter, or maybe it's because it did happen more. But or even eating dinner together is something that's. I wonder how often that happens. I mean, surely not as much as when I was a kid, but maybe I'm wrong. But it's
hard to know, because I just don't know that many parents that have families that are sort of like the family that I grew up with, you know, where, you know, mom and dad both work hours that allow them to be home in the evening and stuff like that. And my family didn't really, at least until maybe my brother and sister after I left home, but, like, none of us played, like, crazy travel sports where you're gone all the time and stuff like that. So
yeah,
it's hard to say. It's hard to say.
I wish it did happen. I really do. I think that'd be nice. But it's, like I said, schedules and whatnot, it's tough. Or just something we don't do.
Yeah, yeah. Simulant also asks, also in the UK, gravy is what we have on our Sunday roast dinners. What is gravy in the USA? How would you describe gravy, Aaron?
I don't like gravy. So
I'm surprised to hear that. You seem like somebody that could really pack it away.
You're saying because I'm a big fat guy.
Yeah.
What you're saying. And gravy is synonymous with. Thank you, Boat.
Well, I'm just saying.
When you squeeze me hard enough, gravy comes out. Is that what you're saying?
It's like biscuits and gravy. You don't like biscuits and gravy and Bob Evans?
I don't like gravy. No, I don't like. I'm not a huge fan of biscuits, but I don't like gravy.
Huh.
It's weird tasting. It makes your stuff wet. I don't like it.
It's true. Well, it's like mayonnaise. It moistens your food, so it's easier to go down the gullet. Well, you like mayonnaise?
It's not like. It's not exactly like mayonnaise. I don't like mayonnaise on much. I'll eat it on a sandwich. That's about it. I don't put gravy on. I don't put mayonnaise on what gravy would go on.
I love gravy.
Some people love gravy. Yeah,
I love it. You know, gravy can be many different, and gravy's different things to different people. You can have gravy that's based like a turkey gravy, and that's going to be a lighter color. A beef gravy is usually darker and thinner. But I think gravy is the same in America as it is in England. Like, I don't think it's different. Simulant.
Yeah.
He asks, if you could have any job, where would you work and what would you do?
Huh. Why don't you answer that one first, Bud? I think you've got the answer because you've got the job you love, right? So
right. I would literally do the same thing that I do now. I would just jettison all of the other crap that I hate. Like, I would still want to be a band director, but I'd only want to direct like 1 or 2 periods a day. Just have like one band rehearsal a day, not have to deal with parents, not have to deal with cafeteria duty, not have to deal with like morning traffic. You know, I'd get rid of all the crap that I hate, but I would literally do exactly what I do right now.
I I think I would like to own a store, a business.
Mm-hmm.
I used to go to this place called the Rusty Scabbard. It's still around. It's in Lexington. It's like a place that sells, role playing stuff and Warhammer stuff and miniatures and that kind of stuff. I think I'd like to have something sort of like that, except the problem with that is you've got these geeks that come in there and just hang out telling
Loitering.
D&D stories
Yeah.
all day long right up front, and people try to steal from you. So I guess my ideal business would be a place where I could sell things that I was knowledgeable on or enjoyed without worrying about getting robbed or having to put up with a bunch of degenerate goofs. So
Yeah.
it's somebody in fantasy land.
Well, yeah, I mean, like in this fantasy world, just like I can be a band director without having to deal with parents or whatever. Like in your world, you can be so wealthy that it doesn't matter if people steal from you. You're just happy running this business and talking about stuff that you like.
Something else that would be fun to do is, and this is not going to happen, but it would be fun. I really enjoy. I enjoy fooling around Twitch and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and not that sound like my kid here. I want to be a YouTube star, but
That's
it would
every
be
kid.
fun to just have all day to devise things to do and put up. Like me and you both sort of try to think outside the box on some of this our wackier antics, but like I want to do a show where we get together and write and produce an old radio show.
Oh yeah,
And I want to play board games online.
you're
And
right.
I want to play Dark Tower online. And I want to have a mobile camera and go on tours of weird spots in West Virginia stuff. I'd love to have the time and the money to do all that kind
Yeah,
of crazy stuff that I can't do.
I agree with you. I think that that is the winning submission because I would love to do all that stuff too. That would be great. I'd love it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Chris Folds asks, okay, this is an interesting question. If I could sell you a machine for $2,000 that could play everything perfect, he doesn't specify, so I'm guessing every game that's ever been released perfect, connect to everything, and look totally BA, would you sell your old machines to buy it?
I think the question's already sort of been answered in a lot of ways because there are machines out. This is a funny hobby, and we've talked this before, privately. But this goes back to that comment I had on the jukebox years ago. Like, I went out and bought a jukebox full of 45s. It weighed 1,000,000,000 pounds. It needed all kinds of work. I toted it into the house like a pack mule. I cleaned it. I screwed with it, right? And then I looked beside it, and I had a little box that could play 1,000 times more stuff right now in better quality than this jukebox. And it occurred to me that if you look at this hobby in the right perspective, you're an idiot. It's just like arcade collecting. I would tote all these arcade machines around, and it was so stupid. They're heavy, they're hard to move, they're easily breakable, they're old, and you can play all the games. So why do you do it? I don't know is the answer. I don't know why you do it. So if I could buy a machine that would play all the games when I sell my old ones, no. I don't know why. Because there are plenty of machines out there now that I could sell my old stuff to and buy. I could have like the ultimate super mister set up, and it'd be awesome, play everything. And I could do that now, but I'm not going to do it. And I don't know why. I don't know what it is that makes me want to keep around this old, flaky stuff that me and you bitch about it more than anybody about how this doesn't work, the screen's screwed up, and I don't know how to load this, but we still do it, and I don't know why. So there's my answer. No.
Me neither. With my computer now, I can play everything that has ever existed up to this point. Even like PS3 games, and I still like taking the Atari 1200 XL off the shelf and connecting it to my CRT monitor and playing with the gym stick with the top that I ate. It's something about the ritual. It's something about looking at the thing, and it's connected with your memories, and it makes me happy. So emulation can't do that all the time.
I will say this as a happy medium in this conversation. The Amiga sits in my Amiga 500. So when I'm looking right at it here, there's an Amiga 500 right here, Bode. So in my mind, here's this Amiga. I don't think very often like, oh, there's a weird thing in here that makes everything easier. But I played this about 1,000 times more than I used to. Okay. So what does that mean? Does that mean the Amiga means less to me, or I'm going to sell my Amigas? No. But am I going to take the path of least resistance? You got that right. Now, is there a possibility in the future if they released a board that made the Amiga 1000 super easy to use, would I buy it? Probably not, but it's possible. It's everything can change on a dime, you know. And for me, but I don't see myself selling my stuff to get an all playing stuff. But you never know. You never say never.
If they build an Amiga that would fit in an Amiga 1000, I would probably buy it.
Yeah, you know, well, I mean, I don't blame you, especially considering the fact that you don't have to destroy the 1000,
right?
And you can still sort of you still sort of feel like you're using.
Well, it's the same as the way that you use the 500. You know, there's no need for you to get another Amiga to run in your 1000. You've already got one Amiga. So
we talked about the Vampire when it came out, and remember how many times I flaked out back and forth if I thought it was a good idea, if I didn't. Is it real Amiga? Is it not? I think I've come to the conclusion that I should tell that part of my head to shut up and just play the thing, and if it works, don't worry about it. So that's sort of where I'm at now.
All right. Well, we will see you next week, or in a couple weeks, or maybe in 1 week, for the next edition of Ask the Amigos.